And hello, everyone. Welcome to WAFER number 16. I'm Thomas, aka MrWartburg. I'm fucked up already. Anyway, beside me as usual is Mr. Fusion.
Greetings and salutations, everyone.
I'm not gonna redo it. We got a lot of stuff to get through because this is the Wartburg and Fusion Entertainment Review. Like I said, it's number 16. We're gonna be talking about some news. We got some big entertainment media merger news. We got some new shows that came out, some new episodes that have come out. Actually, two new shows since I think the last podcast we did, Bad Batch, wasn't out yet.
No, it
Of course,
wasn't.
we got MODOK, the big AT&T Discovery thing. A little update on me going back to the movies. And then some animated movie news. And then our big two things that we just want to talk about for fun are Mass Effect Legendary Edition and the greatness that is Ted Lasso.
Yes.
So, Fusion, let's jump on into it. It has been, I think, 3 weeks now since we recorded a show.
3 whole weeks, yes, sir.
Which has been nuts. We pushed last week because we just really didn't have much to talk about. We had just cracked open the Mass Effect Legendary Edition, so we didn't really have time to give thoughts on it. And other than Bad Batch, there really wasn't much to talk about. So we pushed it to week 3. So what have you been up to in those 3 weeks?
Dipping in a couple of different things. I did, like you said, Mass Effect. Dipped into the first one, and I'm probably a third of the way through. But I will say this: as much as I loved the remastering, because I think the thing that's probably going to be low key underrated here is the audio quality of the remastering. I think they remixed it because it's a lot better than I remembered the first one. The graphics, of course, are nice. I will say I do have a bit of a pet peeve here, guys, because I'm running it off of a rig, running an RTX 2080 Ti, and I was hoping it'd be running off of a 3090, but we all know how that's just a total fucking disaster to try to find a GPU out there these days with all of the so just to hit the market, we have what do you call them? Scalpers, just botting the shit out of every place that they go on sale. But anyway, but I will say this: for me, I enjoyed it on my rig, so I installed it on my laptop, and I have a new laptop, an MSI that runs an RTX 3080. So I'm like, okay, this should be fine. If I'm running off at the 2080 Ti, this should be fine on a 3080. Yeah, man. The system completely shit the bed. Not only that, but it just destroyed my SSD on my laptop. Like,
Damn.
thankfully, like it just when I would load it in Steam, I think I found a workaround to get it to play because it wasn't playing for a while. But I finally figured it out. I think you got to shut off if you have Origins installed on your wherever your main system is, where you have Steam and all that. Be sure you disable Steam, like shut it down, and Origins as well, because it tries to load it up through the cloud, like their profiles, and I think that's causing a problem. But I was able to get it running, but it's still just for some reason it's not optimized for the 3080 mobile GPU. I don't know what's going on. I've tried to dig around, haven't found anything yet, but hopefully I'll get it there. Been playing it on the rig though, the big rig, and I enjoy it. Very beautiful game. I'm going with Fem Shepard this round.
Damn right. That's the way to do it.
I was vanilla, vanilla dude Shep. You know what? Honestly, man, I was vanilla Shep my entire run through all 3 games. First run through all three games, because I started him as a dude in the first game, and then when I bought the second game, I realized that when you put it into the 360, it goes, we want to pull the information off of your previous game save. I'm like, oh man, it's going to create a story based off of okay. So by that point, it was dude Shep. So I was like, all right, just roll with it all the way through, But it's a beautiful game, man. Really, really fun. I know they've talked about really vamping up the multiplayer and doing some type of online matchmaking in some maps or something here down the road.
Yeah, they say if there's enough demand, which I'm hoping by N7 Day, we'll have an answer. I would love an N7 Day surprise. Oh, hey, here's a trailer. It's going to be out in April or whenever. And that'd be dope.
Yeah, I mean, but this was my first experience running Mass Effect on my keyboard and mouse on my PC. Been very happy with that. Like I feel like this was a game that plays better on PC for me rather than controller. Because like I said, I tried playing it on my laptop, but I installed my my Xbox Series X controller on my laptop to play it, and of course the res was low, but I just didn't like the way I moved on. Obviously, I'm much more into PC world than I am into console. When the first Mass Effect came out, I was probably more console, maybe a little more balanced with my games, but more console than PC. Now I'm like, this 90% PC. I hardly play my console.
Yeah,
I hardly ever play. I bought it. I have all the consoles that come out, and I hardly ever play them. So,
Mm.
but I like it. I've been having fun, doing that and catching up on Ted Lasso, which you were pushing it. I finally sat down. I watched the first episode and I just messaged him and I said, dude, I'm hooked. This is it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm in. And you're like, did you get it? I'm like, I watched the first half to today. The next day I had a low schedule at the office, so I was able to leave early, watch the rest of it. I was like, dude, this is great. Like, there's a lot, there's layers. There's
Oh
layers to
yeah.
this show that I was not expecting. So we have a lot to talk about. But yeah, that's what I've been doing, man. That and I caught up on season 3 of Cobra Kai because I wanted to rewatch it again. And I will tell you, there's a couple of good things I liked about the season. And I think the big things are the reunions that they had were done very, very well. Callbacks to like these character reunions that we revisit after 35 years. I think they did a very good job with that. I think the ending was a little weak, though, for my taste, now that I watched it a second time. But it's still a really good show. But yeah, just catching up on other things. Not too much sci-fi these days, just because I know we're gonna have a busy summer. With Loki coming up in June, and then in July, what do we have in July?
I just want to cut in and say, if you appreciate my Ted Lasso recommendations, I got a couple sci-fi shows for you that I know you haven't watched and I know you'd love.
12 Monkeys is one of them. Maybe this summer I'll get on 12 Monkeys, the
And then
show.
a more modern day sci-fi person of interest.
Person of interest. See, that's the one I missed out on because
It's on HBO
I was
Max.
I know, I know. I was a CSI guy, and so when I think of CBS shows, I think of them being just modern cop dramas, not sci-fi. And I didn't know this one was a sci-fi until
Yeah,
like I
CBS.
think the
That's
end
the
of the
best.
first season.
CBS didn't know. Dude straight up lied to the CBS execs and said, "No, it's a procedural," and then just stuffed in one of the best AI sci-fi stories of all time. It's awesome.
Well, I have to watch that one. And the other one I never jumped onto, which I kind of regret now, is Mr. Robot. I think that's another one I need to catch up on
I
as
need
well.
to watch that one.
So maybe that's probably, let's just say by the end of 2021, both you and I catch up and squeeze in Mr. Robot before this year's out.
I'm game. I'm game.
Okay, cool. But that's what I've really been doing, man. That and dipping in on Apex on the new. We played the 3-on-3s and had some fun. Actually, I think we did a lot better with 3-on-3s than we do in Battle Royale because
Yeah,
it feels like we win a lot more because it's just boom, 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 and match over. It's
yeah.
to the point and it's just like fast action and to the point. I think where the Battle Royale, there's just too much going on and too many around you to really have a chance. So yeah, that's what really I've been doing the last 3 weeks, man. That's really it.
So like for me on my end, getting ready for a charity stream that's coming up
Yep.
on this coming Sunday. Of course, by the time most of you are maybe reading or watching or listening this, not reading, I'm not transcribing this. I don't know what I'm doing. It's already going to have happened. But we're raising money for the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation of America.
Yep.
I got the Last Dab Apollo all
Yes,
ready for
sir.
some Hot Ones Crohn's edition. It's going to be a great time. Um, I've been playing a lot of Mass Effect. I'm 30 hours in already to Mass Effect 1 and a couple hours in Mass Effect 2, though I decided, fuck it, I'll go back and redo my first playthrough just because I don't want to romance anybody in the first one as Femshep and then go in Garrus all the way through. That's the way to do it. And I would recommend if you've never played Femshep Fusion, doesn't sound like you have, in 2 and 3, I really enjoy the Femshep Garrus relationship. Fantastic.
Sure. Sure.
And Jennifer Hale is awesome. Like
Yes, she is.
her and coupled with Garrus's voice actor, who's maybe the best of the like NPCs, those two together, shit, it's amazing. It's just
But no,
you totally believe that they're in a relationship.
no, it's a different Garrett. It's a different voice actor in 1 than
Nope,
to 2 and 3, right?
nope.
He sounds a little like
I don't
more
think it is.
more
He
seasoned in
plays
2
him a
and
little
different,
less,
drier and raspier in episode 2 and 3.
yeah, because
Yeah,
he's the more seasoned veteran. He's no longer
battle scarred,
the
obviously. Yeah,
the naive hothead that he was in
yeah,
the first go run through. And I think that was by then, he knew where the story beats were going for Garrus because in Mass Effect 1, you could just not ever get Garrus. You could just not do that. Mass Effect 2, you can't. Like, you can't skip the Archangel mission. Spoilers if you've never played it, however old game. But you can't skip
15
that.
years.
I don't think you can. Whereas in Mass Effect 1, you can. And then if you skip him in 1, he's not in 2, I think is how you do it.
Yeah,
Maybe. I don't remember how that actually works because I've never done it because Garrus is amazing. On top of that, been watching The Bad Batch episodes 1, 2, and 3. Did not catch episode 4 this week. I've also been thinking about going back to the movies. I think this Friday, Joey and I are going to go watch A Quiet Place 2 in Mason City with our,
Okay.
do the assigned seatings and everyone's. I think they're only doing like 25% capacity or something, maybe. I can't remember what their
But
theater policy is right now.
okay.
And and when we go get food, it'll be just to go. I'll eat a burrito in the car and then go to the movie because A Quiet Place One was a fantastic movie, and I'm very excited to see what they did with the second one.
Sure.
All right, so that's kind of where we're at. So we got some news to get into. Let's start
Yes.
with the big one that
Okay.
kind of has sent major shockwaves throughout the industry, and is
Yeah.
going to send a lot more as it goes
Oh,
through with the actual, particulars of the merger for years to come. And that is, of course, AT&T throwing up its hands and say, we were fucking idiots. We're done. We're going to merge with Discovery for $43 billion, which is like half of what they spent on Time Warner back in the day. So they're going to spin off all their entertainment IP and everything else to merge with Discovery to create a new entity, which they haven't announced any names or anything like that. Maybe it's going to be Discovery. I don't know. But it's for $43 billion, and it's expected to be approved. And then we'll actually get more information about what it's all going to entail and all that sometime next year. The first blush on that news, what is your reaction to AT&T's complete 180 from the entertainment space?
Um, I was a little shocked just because I think we're probably about to receive. I'm probably going to get in the next week or so a big announcement from one of the other big power players in the streaming world, whether it be Netflix or Disney or something. And I think just because this deal was going down and it was really like, okay, it's probably not going to happen, and then it may be, oh, they're engaged in talks, and the very next day, merger announced. It was like it was just the announcement came way too fast, just for a giant corporation of AT&T size, and
Mm-hmm.
it sounds like to me it felt like it was a preemptive strike for something else. And it's all, let's be real. This whole content thing is based around the streaming wars. The one thing that
Mm-hmm.
you and I talked about 6 7 years ago, long before it was even a thing, when it was just Netflix and Hulu and Amazon Prime had a few fucking videos on it. That was it. We had talked about eventually Universal, Paramount, like all these companies that own media, they have own content. They're going to create their own streaming services, and we called like, hey, big name titles are going to leave Netflix because of it to go under where they're properly owned. All the IP owners, all that stuff. So I was a little shocked that it was announced so fast, but I think that they're trying to get the jump quite frankly, I think they're trying to do this before the Friends reunion show airs next week. That's going to air next Thursday,
Yeah.
Warburg. And I'm expecting at least 20 million new subs for HBO Max. At least 20 million new
Yeah.
subs.
Because that's going to bring in
And
a demographic they've never really hit with HBO.
nope. And because you think about it, Friends and The Office, two shows that are really old now, were two of the top streamed products on Netflix for years.
Literally the entirety of Netflix's existence.
Yeah, and I mean, it was The Office and Friends that were like
Yeah.
of the top three. It
Yeah.
was those two shows that were always in the top three for years. And then when they were pulled, Netflix knew like, hey, we may be risking a lot of revenue, but they've been able to manage to stay afloat. But I think it's going to be a huge spike, just like what was it? Was it The Mandalorian that created the huge spike for Disney Plus
That was the
recently?
first one, yeah.
And then WandaVision, there was another spike as well. I think that's going to create a huge spike, and I think this was done to create a whole synergy thing to really create interest in what they're going to be doing on HBO Max. If they were smart, they would leave the HBO Max or
Yeah,
just
I'm
HBO Max
super
to
stunned.
Disney.
We're still getting this weird ad-supported HBO tier.
Yeah,
Like,
that's it. Yeah, it's
with
odd.
this news that you knew was coming down the pipe, because according to the AP story, the two CEOs, and I'm assuming the boards of each were like, "Hey, CEOs, just go negotiate it. We're done. Like,
Yeah,
we don't care. Just go deal
yep,
with it." Because apparently they've been working behind the scenes for 2 months just as
yeah,
individuals. Like the
uh-huh,
AT&T CEO did not even tell the WB CEO that he was doing
yeah,
this. So apparently it was a very backdoor. Boards just hands off. CEOs had free reign to figure this out, which is how it kind of came out of the blue. But I'm stunned that AT&T, and in particular CEO, didn't put a kibosh on some of the changes they're making to HBO right now, because like you're not going to have the company.
yeah,
Like, and a lot of those people, like, you don't want to fuck with it now.
yeah,
You can't. I mean, it would kind of be in limbo, but it's not going anywhere. Like, it's HBO, it's not going anywhere. But like just fucking with it and keeping so hands on with it as you're preparing to spin it off into its own thing, and you're not going to deal with it anymore. That seems weird
yeah.
and unnecessary.
Well,
And
and
let
I
the
think
next company, the company that it becomes into,
yeah.
let them figure it out.
Well, you have to remember when the announcement was made a few days ago, it was a little confusing because the information I took wasn't a straight up merger. It was AT&T's merging their content catalog with Discovery, and that they were going to maintain their other business operations autonomously.
Yeah,
Does
they
that
are.
make
Like
sense?
it like whatever entity this becomes will be an
Yeah.
entirely autonomous organization, not affiliated with AT&T.
With their telecom, none of that stuff.
None of
That's
it. They're
basically
completely getting out of the entertainment game.
they're getting out of the game while they still own the IP. That's basic, but they're merging they're
It's
merging their
yeah.
ownership with Discovery is what I understand. It was a little confusing, but what it sounds like is, like you're right. They should Discovery's going to want their content. Are they going to want it on HBO Max, or are they going to want to create a new mega monster streaming service that HBO Max is inside of? But then you basically you're bundling a service within a service, which can create a whole thing. But
Mhm.
I think HBO has a very powerhouse name to
Yeah,
get
it
rid of
still
it.
does. And they've got
W
their Game of Thrones prequel coming down the pipe. Like it's like in
Yes,
production.
that's what are you talking? Another 10, 15 million guaranteed subs, like, consistently to have a
Mhm.
base at? I know that they're not gonna be able to compete with Disney for a while because I know they
No,
struggle
I don't
internationally.
think they should try to.
No,
I'm a
no, I
fan of
mean
companies saying, "Fuck it, let's go do our own thing." Like Xbox and Sony have now just gone, "Nah, we're gonna go different ways.
yeah,
Same stuff,
exactly.
same content ish, but different ways of doing it."
Yeah, and it's good because it's like we could still make a shit ton of money and make a lot of money that we want without having to worry about competing with directly with someone else and risk losing money. Like because we what we do is a lot different. Disney has their more family oriented IP and more brand. HBO's like our brand is we don't give a fuck. We just have good shit all over, whether it be kids, whether it be adults, whether it be anime, sci-fi, action documentaries. Like, I mean, that's one thing I debating with someone with on Twitter the other day. HBO is probably the second next to Netflix in terms of quality documentary series out there. I mean, that's really it when you really think about who has the bangers in terms of like compelling documentaries, and it's Netflix, of course, is number one, but then HBO has to be second. So you have a lot of really good products that are like content products that are within the HBO banner, within the Warner Media banner. It makes sense to bring in the other thing that these other streaming services don't have outside of Peacock right now, which is reality TV, which is a big thing like on cable networks. You have your Discovery, your AME, your all those. They can put all of that
Yeah, like
under
they
this
have like
banner.
HGTV.
Shark Week will be a fucking huge
Yeah,
thing under HBO Max. Just if you have if let's
imagine
just
the
say
synergy. King
yeah.
Shark Week.
Oh God! See, now you're just like that. This is what I like. This is what I'm here for, man. King Shark Week.
You know, Ron Funches would be down to be on that show.
Oh fucking yeah! Just the animated King Shark hosting Shark
That'd
Week.
be dope as fuck.
Oh
Even
my
if it's just
god!
him doing interstitials, or like lower third stuff, it'd be awesome.
Like this right here. This is my uncle. This is my uncle Ted. Like just doing stuff like that. Like
Yes.
just random shit. Just that. But they can get away with it because they don't have the Disney family name. Like they can do a bunch of different stuff, which is why Harley Quinn is such a great show because they're like, yeah,
You
we're
say that,
broad.
they have MODOK.
See, that's the thing.
That's where Disney's trying to have its cake and eat it
They're
too, but
trying
doesn't know
to
how to eat it.
but look where the show is at. Where did I tell you they were gonna
On
try to
Hulu.
test on Hulu? Where I told you they were gonna test their adult stuff on Hulu first before they put it in Disney Plus Adult or whatever, Plus, whatever they're gonna call it. But because they want to test out the reception of it, like because they know now Hulu used to be a collaborative effort between all these networks. Now everyone knows it's Disney's thing now. It's Disney's thing. So to see the response from MODOK, and I can give you my thoughts. One episode in, it's okay. It's not. I mean, it's Robot Chicken in the MCU. Like, I mean, it's not in. Well, it's not in the MCU, but it's a Marvel
In the Marvel
product.
world.
Yeah, it's the Marvel world, but it's Robot Chicken, and it's okay. It's got its moments. It was.
No
I didn't
Harley
realize.
Quinn, though, is what you're saying?
No, fucking Harley Quinn. Just the dialogue is.
Yeah, it's
Dialogue
it's
is
yeah, it's
he's
it's the it's the character interactions and their dialogue to each other, and how many
yeah,
jokes get peppered into it. Much like when we talk about Ted Lasso, that's where
yeah,
it shines. It's not the
yeah. No,
style, it's not
seriously,
how it looks, it's not the animation.
no.
It's that beating heart of the show is so good that
Yep.
everything else is just superfluous.
It's the subtle things about Harley Quinn because it's a rated R show, but just the subtlety of like Dr. Psycho's little comments, the sexism, the racism there, that like just the character is a complete and total monster. But then you have King Shark, who you would think was the monster, is just like the funniest, simplest, sweetest person, like character of all of them. And then, it just such great interaction and great voice casting. I looked at the cast list of MODOK. It's a good list. Don't get me wrong. It's not a bad list. But when I watched that first episode, I was like, okay. The whole season's up, and at some point, I'll binge. Spend a day or half a day watching the rest of season one, and I'll let you know. Maybe it got better. Maybe it did. Maybe it's just I had really high hopes for this show, and it's not really what I. But I say that, but I kind of the fact that we knew Patton Oswalt was going to be
Yeah,
MODOK, it's like, what the fuck were you expecting this to be? It wasn't going to be a Shakespearean production, guys. Come on, it's
yeah.
Patton Oswalt as MODOK, the killer. I just yeah, but I think it's a little hokier than I thought it was going to be, just a little bit. Maybe they rein it in. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, I mean, or maybe like you said, I just have this high bar with Harley Quinn. I just
Exactly.
have this high bar in my head, and I was expecting Harley Quinn type of like quality of humor, and I just didn't see that in the first episode. But we'll see. I'll watch a few more, and it could get better.
All
Hopefully, it
right.
does.
I want to cut in here.
Okay.
And just to say, I'm at now roughly 23 minutes of the recording. I'm recording on my phone, face camming myself, so I get the audio of what's happening. So in podcast, you're getting a demo of RTX voice because
Yeah.
I have a 1070 Ti card. They're tearing apart the roof of my house, and OBS hasn't moved a single decibel from background noise because I'm using
Great.
RTX voice, and I'm gonna be showing this video with the audio like right here.
Okay. Like a two cam shot of the audio just
Yeah,
jumping on your.
and I just killed it there, so it'll be inserted, or I'll find a way
God,
to use it. And if I
the
don't,
advancements of technology, man. What we could do these
it's
days.
freaking cool. Because man, it was so high pitched. I'm like, how is the mic not picking this up?
I
Crazy.
saw your eyes grow big, and I know people listening to the audio version of this, they're like, "What the fuck are these guys talking about?" But I could see your eyes get big, and then you just go and you look at your phone. I'm like, okay, I guess that's related to what's happening outside. So yeah,
Yeah, it was nuts. Like it was just so cool. But anyway, getting back to the AT&T Discovery merger
yeah,
issue
yeah. Your thoughts?
at large, for me, one of the things the AP story hit on really struck a chord with me. I'll see if I can try to find the quote in and of itself. Yeah. It increases the pressure on smaller streaming services like Peacock or Paramount Plus to find partners. And individually, those are NBC and CBS affiliated. Paramount Plus just went through their whole rebrand, bringing all the CBS stuff in plus like Nickelodeon and everything Paramount owns for IP essentially under one banner. Peacock just launched another tier or something, and they just got all the Harry Potter movies and everything.
Yeah,
For me, like just kind of prognosticating what might be next, if anyone's gonna start gobbling up other streaming services and not merge, but just outright buy them, it's gonna be Apple.
I agree. I
They've
agree.
got the cash.
Yep.
They don't have the ton of IP. Like that's they're cash rich, IP poor right now. They've got
Yep.
some great stuff. One of their shows we'll get to later in Ted Lasso, and they're clearly committed to making the streaming service work.
I was gonna say they are hungry for content.
Yeah,
They
and
are.
if anyone's gonna buy somebody, it's gonna be them. And
Yeah.
I think they outright buy. I don't know if they buy a company. Like, do they buy NBC?
They would have
Like,
well, they would have to buy Comcast, which would be, I
yeah,
mean,
like
Comcast owns
I could see
Universal, which
them
Comcast.
buying. I could see them pulling an AT&T of like, hey, we're gonna buy Time Warner. Like in 2018, that's what they did. They just bought a whole fucking media company.
I
I
mean,
don't know if
of all
Apple's
the
gonna go
companies out
that big,
there, they have the cash to buy him. Yeah.
but but I could see them doing a like a maybe it's I can't think of any other smaller streaming services beyond Peacock or Paramount Plus. But if anyone's going to make a move into that space with either a merger or an outright acquisition, my money's on Apple because they're going to ride high on some of their critical acclaim because of Ted Lasso. But they don't have a lot of IP behind that. A couple movies that weren't bad, like Greyhound that I watched with Tom Hanks,
Sure.
really solid World War II naval combat movie.
Okay.
Nothing spectacular, but solid. And if anyone's going to move into that space, it'll be them. And I'm curious to see what dominoes this new AT&T Discovery merger sets off in the
Sure.
streaming space, because Netflix is going to make a move for something, whether that's buying new IP sources, like expanding what they're currently doing with like IDW and stuff into a different, maybe buy another comic book company's IP rights. Who knows what they do? That'll be interesting. So I think that about covers it for that story. So
Yep.
we already touched on Modoc more or less. I haven't watched it myself. So other new TV news, we've got The Bad Batch, which
Yes,
the
we
first
do.
4 episodes are out. I've only seen 3. Fusion has seen all 4. Of
Yep.
course, releasing weekly on Disney Plus on Fridays now that they've separated their Marvel and Disney or Star Wars and Marvel properties. Marvel
Yep.
being Wednesdays and Star Wars on Fridays. Which coincidentally, Star Wars is the only one that doesn't have movies coming out, so they're on Fridays, Marvel's on Wednesdays, just to not mess with releases. So what's been your thoughts on The Bad Batch so far?
It's they listed as a continuation of the story after the Clone War, of course, the Clone Wars. Of course, for those that have heard of the Bad Batch but don't know the full rundown, the story starts immediately at Order 66. That's really without going into full detail, but um I enjoyed the first episode, which was an hour long.
Mhm.
I
I was
I think
surprised by that.
yeah, I didn't realize. I was like, I was sitting there. I'm like, okay, we're about 30 minutes in, and this doesn't feel over. So I was like, okay, maybe it's 44. And I hit my mouse, and I look, it's like 1 hour and 7. I was like, oh shit, like this is a lot longer than I thought. It was just like a whole movie within the season, which was different. The characters are somewhat interesting. I think the story is dragging a little bit, but then I didn't realize it was 16 full episodes. I thought it was like a 10 episode season. And then when I went and looked yesterday before I watched episode 4, I looked and saw, oh, it's 16. Okay, well that makes sense. This whole thing with the dichotomy and this conflict with Crosshairs, which was one of the Bad Batch, the guys on the Bad Batch, who's now working for the Empire. I think that's going to be a longer story than I was thinking they were going to resolve it within the next episode or two, but and then wrap up the season. But if it's 16 episodes, we're probably going to get about 3 or 4 more episodes where whatever the conflict is with him. But it's a good show. I like the cast. Of course, there's one guy voicing all of these characters because
D.
they're all
Bradley
clones of
Baker
Jango Fett.
is a voice acting god.
Yeah, and what gets me is that he if correct me if I'm wrong here. He voiced the Jango Fett Boba Fett characters within the animated
Yeah,
shows,
he
right?
did.
This
Everything
is nothing
animated.
new. Okay. So people that are the faux outrage of whitewashing of the voice acting is silly because he's been voicing Django slash Boba Fett on these productions for a while now. Let's be real, for like what, the last
I
decade
haven't heard
now.
any of this whitewashing stuff. What's this about?
Yeah, there was an article after the first 2 episodes hit. I think it was right before last week's episode, where they were talking about, people were like, "There's just those entertainment bloggers reaching, saying that the how Disney is going to, like, they're looking at probably darkening the skin of the characters, within the next couple episodes, like doing like post production now, because there is a bit of a backlash due to how white skinned some of the characters are in the Bad Batch, because they're Jango Fett's clones, but like I think 2 of them are really light skinned guys, and so they don't like the fact that they're whitewashed. But then of course one of
That
these
seems. Well, then nobody
out
knows what the fuck happened with Echo, because the dude's basically a Borg.
exactly, like that's the thing, is like they
Like
don't
his
know the
blood's
story.
not blood anymore.
Exactly. They don't know the story behind these characters. But the other thing was, one of these guys, one of these big entertainment bloggers, who was ranting about it, also said, and the fact that he's acting, doing the voice of all of these characters, it's just an outrage. And I'm like, wait, didn't he do the voice for previous productions of the Fett
Yes.
characters? And
It's
I
like,
was like, and then I Googled, I'm like, what the fuck is this about? Well, you know what? Never, and I tell this about the whole thing on the internet, never let the facts get in the way of a good, well spun narrative. And that's the case with this whole thing. And of course, unfortunately, Disney is scrambling right now to kind of make a few tweaks to the thing, to
dude,
production,
man,
to
that's
those
the thing.
people.
It's like, guys, you learned your lesson with James Gunn. You jumped the
Yeah.
gun,
Yeah.
to use the pun. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Stand by fucking Dave Maloney. The guy
Yeah.
fucking knows his shit.
Yep.
Stand
Yep.
by that dude.
Yep.
Just saying.
And I mean, it's like maybe the reason why these guys, a couple of these are, like you said, Echo's skin is, I mean, he doesn't
Yeah,
even have
that's
blood.
extremely story related,
It's
right?
story, we
And
don't
these
know
guys are
what.
defective clones. Like they're
Yeah,
not
exactly.
regular clones. All the
Like,
rest literally do look identical, outside of
now
scars from battle and such.
I want to throw something out there that I was thinking about a little while ago before we started recording, and I want to know your thoughts on that. So the whole premise behind the Bad Batch is these are defective Jango Fett clones that they've modified and they've created they've grown extra abilities or skills or
Mm.
one of them is a little bit bigger and stronger than the others, like certain characteristics that were not commonplace with all of the other Jango Fett clones, right? So my thought is, from what I understand in the first couple episodes, they tell you that all of the Fett clones all have which is something that's new to us. They all have an inhibitor chip in their brain. Okay, what that does is that creates that fills the plot hole of Order 66, which was something that a lot of people had a question about with Order 66. Was these Fett clones all have personalities? So are they complete? Like, what was there something in the like? Were they programmed, or what happened for them to all know when Order 66 was released by Darth Sidious or Emperor Palpatine that they all immediately turned on these Jedi's that they had been close to in war for years, so for the last 2 or 3 years during the Clone Wars?
I think it was
Like,
like
why
5
would they just
years. Yeah.
was it 5 years? Okay, why would they just turn on them so fast? Well, that's kind of a plot hole that's been around for a while now since Revenge of the Sith. Well, they kind of fill that by saying there's an inhibitor chip that every single clone has that the Caminos or Caminos or what is it, the Caminos, whoever
Kaminoans.
Kaminoans have they've been working on and they put in them and they program them. Well, these five guys don't have their inhibitor chips working. So my question to you, Warburg, is if that's the case, then is Boba Fett defective because he
He
doesn't
was
have an
unaltered. That was
he was an
he was
so
an
these
unaltered clone from episode 2. She says Django wanted that as his that was his only payment. A true
yeah,
purely unaltered clone.
yep.
So he
So
wouldn't have even known about the
okay,
chips.
so these weren't ever all well, they were altered because they had inhibitor chips implanted in their brains, right? So they
No,
would be
they're
altered.
altered. They were the adaptations or gifts or whatever they were given were just unintentional side effects, and it turns
Okay,
out they were good side effects. Whereas
okay,
in Clone Wars, the show, we see defective clones.
yep,
There was like a janitor clone, but a lot
yeah,
of the clones that don't grow right, they just get thrown in the trash, like they're just dumped
yep,
out into sea, right, or incinerated or whatever. Whereas these guys, um, they're like Clone Force 99. They're the Bad Batch. They're like the best of the best,
yeah,
even though they're freaks. They're abominations, but they're the best.
yep.
They're
Okay,
very much X-Men of the Clone Forces, just
yeah,
regular, like the
that's
clone
something
troopers,
that
just
was a little
regular
worried.
people.
Okay, that was something that came to my mind was like, okay, so would they technically be on par with Boba Fett? But what you're saying is these guys were modified, they were altered at some point very early on in the process. Okay,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I get you. Okay. Okay.
yep. Like very early,
Um,
they detected that they were going to be deformed, so they just were like, "Fuck it, let them grow," and like turned out good.
Yeah, couple things here. I like the show. It's typical Dave Filoni production now in Star Wars, which is you're going to get a much slower pace, tell a much normal, grounded story. Of course, they're going to leave a lot of things mysterious that we know that there's going to be reveals as the season goes on. Is it like Mandalorian great? No. Is it good? Yeah, it's good. It's better than several of the Clone Wars and Rebel seasons. Honestly, I enjoy it.
I
Um,
disagree with you there.
okay, that's fair. I
Rebels was
mean,
dope from beginning to end.
you okay? Well, I think season 2 I had an issue with Rebels.
Really? That was the
Something
Twilight of the Apprentice. Like that was when
yes,
Ahsoka shows up and it's fucking amazing.
I know. I just there was a few episodes in there where I just felt like, and maybe it's just me. Like at that point, I was also going through a bit of a burnout with Star Wars. I'm not gonna lie. There
Yeah,
was
yeah, well,
stretch.
it was in that weird period where I think we had just gotten Force Awakens.
Yeah,
We didn't even have Rogue One yet. I
no, we
don't
didn't
think
have
at
Rogue One.
that point. So yeah, it was in that weird kind of like Clone Wars was canceled and they never really finished it. But now
Yeah,
we're getting Rebels. It was like,
which is
and Star
canon
Wars
to
media was
the
all over the map.
yeah, which is and Rebels is canon with the Force Awakens. So
Yeah,
Uh, so it was like, I think at that point I was getting a little, because I will tell you this: when Force Awakens, as much as I thought I was excited for it, I was also a little burnt out with just finding myself with Star Wars. And yeah, but it's a good show. Don't get me wrong; it's a good show. The other thing I was going to point out is to the signature. If you know Disney Plus on all the productions now, they do those helmets on all the the new Star Wars signature is the helmet flashing with that little symphonic intro. I really like the nice touch of them being animated helmets for the
Yeah,
signature. It's cute as fuck, but it's really cool. I like it. So yeah, I like the show. Is it like? Am I gonna say it's Mandalorian great? Fuck no, Mandalorian was just a brilliant show, man.
I think
Brilliant.
the best of the animated stuff is definitely Siege of Mandalore.
Yeah,
Season 7, final season Clone Wars. There's a
yeah,
lot of season 6 I like too. Like the whole like the clones uncovering like one of the clones uncovers the mystery of the inhibitor chips, and all the other clones think he's gone nuts. But then the clone we love, Captain Rex, who's the OG, he's the man. Like he's Captain Rex, and he's been name dropped in Bad Batch once.
yep,
Motherfucker, he's showing up to kick some ass in this
yeah.
show,
He is.
and I
He is.
cannot wait because Captain Rex is the man.
Yeah,
Him realizing that maybe Fives, the clone that figured it out, wasn't crazy, and like because he's the guy that holds Fives as he dies, trying to tell him about the chip, but he doesn't finish the thought, and it plants the seed in Rex's mind that something's not right here. There's a lot with Ahsoka. That's I mean, Clone Wars is essentially a textbook story of how to turn a not liked character in the Clone Wars movie, Ahsoka, into maybe the best all around character in Star Wars, Low in Ahsoka Tano. Like, all
okay.
the way around. Like, her growth in that show is amazing. But Siege of Mandalore combines their great Darth Maul, Sam Witwer, awesome Ahsoka stuff, amazing, like, music scores. It's perfectly synced up in music score timing to Revenge of the Sith, which is just incredibly nerdy. Like, not
Yeah,
on the Star Wars nerds, I just on like the nerdy anal about details side,
sure.
and it fits so well. Um, and like Siege of Mandalore is as 4 episodes is fucking perfect, perfect coda to what Filoni did with that show. And Bad Batch, of course, has a lot to step up to meet that. I don't think it's
Sure.
going to get there, but it's answering some really cool stuff. Like answering stuff about the chain codes. Like how do we
Sure.
start? How do we form a government out of the old? Because the old one didn't like get defeated. We're just completely restructuring it from the
Yep.
ground up,
Yep.
right? Like how does that happen logistically? I didn't think they could make that cool because Lucas tried to do logistics and it sucked. But Filoni's found a way to make it cool. Like, and he's given it a touch of evil, because like the chain codes are all about IDing people, so we know everything about everybody. Very,
Well,
evil overlord,
yeah,
government.
and the fiscal approach to why they're getting rid of the clones and
Exactly.
replacing with actual people, like just to hear Admiral, because at this point he's Admiral Tarkin talk about their approach with the young Empire and how they want to start doing away with clones. I was like, okay, this you're right. It's Lucas failed on creating diplomacy within the prequels. It just like talking about like the outline of politics was just not his strong suit. Didn't work very well. But what Filoni's doing is he's giving it logic. It just seems logical for that
Yeah.
conversation to have with the Kaminoans. It's like, yeah, like we've appreciated what they've done, but for us it's not physically viable to continue to pay for clones when we have people out there looking for jobs. And then in the that's actually, and I will, I can talk about it, but I won't. But I'll tell you a little bit. Then it's tied into the most recent episode. So go watch episode 4 when you get a chance,
I have
Warburg. But
to. Because I
you'll
know
see
I
like,
know Ming-Na
yeah,
Wen Wei. I can't remember how to say her
uh,
last name. Is
yeah.
back as Fennec, and she's awesome, and she was awesome in the Mandalorian because she's just fucking awesome as a
Well,
person.
I mean, there's another subplot that goes on with the Empire and soldiers that ties into this whole thing we're talking about. How Filoni's really creating a good, clean story of how the Empire was built. Which is, and the thing is that whenever this show ends, the sad, tragic thing is we know in the next few decades it leads us into a new hope. So then the Empire reigns, but then what happens to the Bad Batch? What happens to these characters that you're going to
Yeah,
fall in love
because
with?
we
And what
don't
happens?
see them
We
before
don't
in
know.
Rebels.
But
They're not around.
yep. So the only thing you could think of is there has to be something tied into from a passive standpoint the resistance. There could be a story that we don't know about with them, like a Rogue One type story that finishes their arc
Yeah,
leading into
I could see
Rebels.
them maybe saving like a Mon Mothma or a Bail Organa,
Yeah.
without knowing who they are, and that like
Yep.
leads to what becomes the rebellion. I
Yeah.
think most of the Bad Batch isn't surviving
No.
everything. I imagine the kid is, Omega
Oh,
is, because
yeah.
I guarantee there's going to be a reveal with that.
Yep.
I don't know if they're implying force sensitivity or not. That would be interesting because Star Wars media has done that. Like
Yeah.
Force Unleashed. Galen Merrick was a clone in the second one. And there was that
Yep.
whole like, can you clone force sensitivity? And in the old EU, there was a clone, something 88,
Oh,
87 maybe, where
I
like
don't.
the other 86 before him didn't have force sensitivity, but he does. And like there was this, it's a Jedi Academy story, and he like literally uses the force to throw an new like Empire like holdouts across a fucking solar system, and
Sure.
then but it leaves him catatonic because his brain's gone from doing
Yeah.
that. Um, but I'm curious if they're going to go that route because it's again not completely untrodden territory in Star Wars at large, but not currently canon. I could
Sure.
see a Filoni bringing that back in from the EU and canonizing it in some fashion and actually fleshing it out, so it makes sense. I mean, if
Okay.
anyone's going to, it's going to be him or Favreau doing something like that because you need to do that kind of thing in shows, not in movies, because you got to flesh shit out. Um, and like especially, you can introduce new concepts in the movies, but you need to explain it as you go. You can't just, oh, she's this and move on,
Yeah.
right? Like that.
Yeah. That's
Oh,
fair.
she's a force healer, but no one in the movies has ever seen that. The fuck does that mean? Right?
Yeah.
Like, explain the shit. Like, the New Hope explains some shit. You didn't. No, not going to
Yeah.
get into that argument again. Um, yeah, like, so I imagine all of the clones, the Bad Batch, is going to die at some point in this show. I
Yeah.
imagine Wrecker's going to go nuts and have, the chip go off or whatever. Crosshairs is going to, like, burn out, so he's going to become a good guy again and
Yeah.
help
He's gonna
save
be.
them all, or try to save them all, but fail because they're all going to die.
Yeah. They're setting up for a redemptive arc for Crosshairs. That's you could see it slowly being put in there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like they're putting him as the Cold Stone Assassin right now, who's solely for the Empire, but are heavily implying it's because of the chip.
Yep.
And his was the only one that like quasi worked
Yep.
during Order 66. And then they were able to amplify it so it totally worked. And he's going to save the team.
Yeah.
But then they'll all fail, but they'll save the kid. Like I imagine Hunter or whatever, when they're all, someone's going to tell Hunter, well, at least she's safe. And then they meet their end.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of a tragic end, but a little hope for whatever the reveal of her becomes, where we'll know or get hinted at who she is down the road.
Well, so my question to you on that is that are we expecting this to have a certain number of season load for this show, or
Can't
is it going to be
remember
like
what they
like
said.
Clone Wars when they didn't even really know how long they were going to go?
Yeah, like Clone Wars, they kind of did because they knew the timeline it had to fit. It had to
Yeah.
fit between 2 and 3. Obviously, they fudged it towards the end because they, number one, the animation technology got way better. Like, and it became a
True.
different show. Like season
Yeah.
3-ish, it finally turned into a show about. Now, this is some war shit.
Yeah.
Like people dealing with amputations and battlefield deaths and commanders that are traitors, and like
It did get a lot darker. Yeah.
you got
Yeah.
some dark stuff, right? You got
Yeah.
dealing with runaways and like prisoners of war and all that. Like it got pretty heady for a kid show. And then Rebels kind of got close, but it was a little more toned down, but not quite because it was very much a setting up Rogue One into the rebellion stuff. But and
Right.
Bad Batch has the luxury of now being in the throes of the beginning of the Empire, so it can get a little
Sure.
darker
Yeah.
because that was the universe getting darker as the
Sure.
Empire asserted its power on the galaxy. So I'm excited to see where that goes.
Yeah.
We are currently at about 45 minutes, give or
Okay.
take.
Sure.
So let's get into some other things.
Right.
We talked a little bit about Mass Effect, so I don't want to get too far into that other than to say, so far I'm having a blast. I like a lot of the changes they made. The Mako is so much better to use right now.
Yes,
I
it
don't
is.
think you've gotten that far. There's a boost now, which is great.
Okay.
The controls way better. The photo mode is dope as fuck. I've made some. It's just really fun to just fuck around and use the camera in fun ways. It's not like the best photo mode ever, but it's really fun. What else we got? I did encounter a few audio bugs where it kind of glitched out, but then it
Okay.
never really did again. It was like one conversation where like every other word was cut off from 2 characters. It was very weird. But mostly I've never had really any bugs in either the OG or I've been very lucky with my Mass Effect playthroughs because I know sometimes, I mean, it's an RPG. You can never out iron all the bugs in a 30-hour RPG. Like, it's just not going to happen. Yeah, I like a lot of the quality of life improvements. Like using a sniper is possible now. It's no longer just all over the fucking place.
Yeah.
You can
Oh
use
yeah.
a sniper now, which is great. Combat is still very different compared to 2 and 3, but I appreciate that it wasn't a remake. I was not in the camp of remake it all to look like 2 and 3 in terms of the combat and mechanics. I really liked the you know, guts that was it was a true RPG, not an action RPG. It was, you had really granular control without getting too in the weeds like some RPGs do.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate that they stayed true to that for the remaster going forward. The only thing I want to touch on is that. Sorry, I just got an email. Planning a charity stream. Sometimes you get random emails. Where was that the multiplayer? Like I said, maybe an N7 drop. I'm actually thinking they might do multiplayer as a standalone title
It's possible. Yeah. I think so
because
too.
it could bridge the gap between Legendary Edition and whatever Mass Effect 5/4 is. Because I don't know if they're gonna. I imagine since Mass Effect Andromeda didn't have a number, they'll just call it Mass Effect 4.
Yeah.
And that could help bridge the gap there because you put it out as a standalone title, but you give it a buy option of like, hey, you can give us $15 when you buy it originally, and you get like the Founders Edition or whatever, kind of like what Apex does, where you get a bunch of skins and a bunch of guns and a bunch of characters. Obviously, it would need to be retooled because they didn't really have a lot of skins so much in Mass Effect 3 multiplayer. You had characters, like you could play as the different races. You had to unlock them. And like you had different guns you could get, different attachments. You could paint, change your armor and put lights on and stuff. And it's just a really fun horde mode. Did you ever play much of the ME3 multiplayer?
Just very little. I think I played a few with you at one point too. A
Yeah, I
few
remember
matches.
for 1 and 7 day, I got a bunch of people on to do it.
Yeah. I think we
Um,
played some matches, but it's one of those where it's very, to me, what I call it is a boxy combat system. It just feels a little like blocky when I play it. It's not as goofy, like noodly as like GTA and Rockstar does. But I think they're gonna make some improvements, and I honestly like, oh, well, we're gonna be able to get like fluid jumping and stuff like the vaulting and stuff like that.
no, it's going to
You
be
know,
Mass Effect 3's mechanics.
yeah. Or, if they completely go something completely different with like the combat system, like you said, it'll probably be with Mass Effect 4, but at the same time it may be flowing into that from this, and it would probably be, if that were the case, it would definitely be something standalone-ish.
Yeah,
They would not be something tied into the 3
yeah.
remakes right now. It's just not, I
Because
don't see
yeah,
it.
Mass Effect 3 itself had loot boxes, so they could
Yeah.
get away with the economy side of making it a free to play title. But
Yep.
you could just auto unlock all the races right away if
Yeah.
you gave them $15 or something like that to buy the purchase. And then the actual economy, the maps, and all that stuff, you just port over an upres from,
Yeah.
and considering they're built on assets from Mass Effect 3, shouldn't be too terribly difficult because you're not dealing with NPCs, you're not dealing with dialogue. Really, it's just the multiplayer suite. And then you leave that, maybe even bring it to a port house. You don't need to do it as BioWare. Have somebody else do it while you're focusing on the next thing. And then drop that either as a launch title, like launch it on the N7 day, or I'm imagining more realistically the trailer date and like some hype for like, hey, Mass Effect's back. It's back to stay. Here we go. Because I think, unlike a lot of the free to play stuff, because now free to play is no longer like a bad thing, right? You got Apex, you got, Destiny went free to play there for a little bit, but it's subscription based. You got Warzone, we got Fortnite. Like free to play is not a bad thing anymore. It
No.
doesn't mean lesser quality. Now it's just its own thing. And I think the Mass Effect Horde mode could fit into that free to play with a paid mechanic, not for competition, but for cosmetics,
Yeah.
in a way that maybe couldn't back when Mass Effect 3 launched. I think just multiplayer in general is in a different place than what was it, 2012? I think it was
I think so.
2012 when that came out. They were 2 years apart. Yeah, 2010, 2012, or 2 and 3. So like we're in a lot of different space now. It's like and it's EA. They've got Apex, which is free to play,
Yep.
and it works. And it's not like you need to worry about a
They're making
studio putting out new
money.
maps every month. The
Yeah.
maps are done. You're not making
Yep.
new maps. You're just needing to port it, brush it up, make maybe possibly some changes to the economy that happened because of what happened with it's no longer part of the main campaign. It's not tied to the story. And then you're just making sure the servers don't shit the bed. Like that's
Yeah.
it. I could see it happening. And it's the top selling game on Steam right now. It's the top selling game in the UK for physical. But they haven't released the US figures. Like Mass Effect is still fucking Mass Effect, man.
Yeah.
Like it's still incredibly popular because
Well,
it's
you
so
know,
good.
yeah, I turned on one and I was like, man, I haven't played this in forever, right? And I will say this kind of not negative, but like, man, I totally forgot how many cinematics there are in this in the first game. Like
It's
a ton of
extremely
cinematics.
cinematic in the
I was like, wow.
opening. Before you're a
Yeah,
Spectre, it is so cinematic.
yeah. Like, I
But
mean,
they were
yeah.
setting up a brand new sci-fi world.
To
Like,
be fair, yes, they establish everything in those cinematics, everything about it, and you explore and you can find out so much about the lore within the Citadel.
yeah,
It'll take you hours to do it, but you know what? At least you get the lore at your leisure while you're exploring before you become a
yeah,
Spectre, and then you move forward with the actual rest of the game. But when I first started, I was like looking up. You look up and you look at the stars, you look at the just the improved graphics and all that. You're like, now I remember why I played Mass Effect and I liked it. It's just like the lore they build. You're just like you can't help but like it, love it, man. You just really can't. You can't. And especially when you see Shep walk up with the armor with the N7, you're like, all right, yes, I'm in.
yeah.
I'm
It's
in, guys.
just it's
I'm
nostalgia at this point, but it was good because it was good.
yeah,
Like I
yeah,
said, to pivot quickly to what we're going to talk about to end the show. It's the characters, it's the dialogue, it's the world, all of it building in on itself to create something just fun and
yeah,
like Mass Effect is a game that just makes me smile. Like when I
yeah,
play it, I got a big old smile on my face. I'm not out like laughing or like busting a gut laughing at jokes or anything, but it's this tone and feeling that is hard to define, but you know when it's not. You know when games try for it and fail. Like other RPGs that would come after, like trying to think of one, like People Can Fly's was it Bullet Storm or something like that. Things
yeah,
like that, like of that vein, who were more going for like the Gears aesthetic, but clearly
yeah.
were missed the mark, right? You can tell when something misses that mark. It's hard to
Anthem.
define what the mark is because it's different for everybody,
Yeah,
but we all kind of feel the same thing when that thing hits.
yeah.
Another thing that hit like that is Ted Lasso.
Yes, it is. Yes, it did. Yes, it did. Yes.
So
It's
Fusion's been catching up on Ted Lasso season 1. I watched it would have been a month and a half ago, and then I got my parents into it, and they binged it in like a weekend. Like my dad
mm,
texted me at midnight, and he does not stay up past 9, like ever, when he's home. Assuming he's not out in the field, he's out early. Texts me at midnight. This was a mistake. I have to finish this.
to finish this.
It's so good. So
Mhm.
Fusion, I'm dying to get your impressions on
Okay.
Ted Lasso season 1. What'd you think of it?
All right. It was the last time I really just said I'm going to binge this all the way through was Stranger Things when that first season came out. When that first season came out, I didn't watch it the first week. My wife was like, "This is all you, like Dungeons and Dragons, 80s culture, like everything. Like this is everything you ever music, 80s music. This is you. This is what you love." And I just didn't watch it that first weekend. She binged it. So the next weekend, I started like on Sunday at like 8 o'clock at night, and I went all the way through till the next morning, and I like had to be up at work in like an hour and a half, 2 hours, and it was worth it. This was the same feeling with Ted Lasso, and I know there are people out there that don't like it, and I think a lot of it has to do with maybe the fact because it's based off of a Fox with a NBC Sports skit, right?
Which is crazy. It's an
That's
NBC
crazy.
sports character that Sudeikis made for them for their sports soccer commercials.
Yep,
Like,
yep.
and
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 don't
the
forget Brendan Hunt's his
yeah, like and the
coach of those
co-star
too.
Coach
Yeah.
Beard is Coach Beard in the skits too. Like
Yeah.
it's the same duo.
Yep.
It's nuts. And so many of the jokes in the pilot are ripped from those original
You're
skits.
directly from the skit into the show,
But yeah,
yeah.
like completely changed perspective and why he's making the jokes, but it's the
Yeah,
same, same, core bits of the joke. It fucking works. It's
yeah.
crazy.
So, the first episode, I watched, like, the first 5 minutes of it, and I was like, "Okay, this is a little slower than I was expecting," or a little more because you had told me, like, the way people described it was, it's a rated R wholesome, if that makes sense. It's a
Yeah.
wholesome rated R
It's like
show.
a wholesome
Like,
major league.
I'm like, "Really?" Like, I don't know, how can that and you were like, "It just fucking works. Watch it, it works." And so I sat down, first 5 minutes, I was like, "Yeah, I'm not really buying this." So I made myself some lunch, and I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna finish the episode." by the end of the first episode, it's like, okay, this is not going to be bad at all. Like, there's Sudeikis is fucking amazing in this. Like, he's just the way, like, just the in the first episode and through the entire season, the whole bit about the tea thing fucking kills me. It just
Yes.
kills me. He's just like, whenever tea's offered, he's like, yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, not doing that. No, no, we're not going there. You know, just
Yep.
like
You can keep
just he
that
spits
pigeon water.
out, you get that, yeah. Like it's just great. But the give and take with the players and with Brandon Hunt as Coach Beard, like everything about it is great. And what I like the most about it, I was actually pleasantly surprised was the really the focus on character depth with everybody and its logical character development. It isn't the, oh my god, there was a misunderstanding, someone walked in and so now we spend half the season with a misunderstanding arc. You know, it's not that. Like there's resolution to all of their issues and like there's constant communication like every single episode. It works and it pushes the story forward. Especially with Hannah Waddingham, who plays Rebecca, and Juno Tempo, who's Keeley, the
They're kind of like, yeah,
Jamie Tartt's girlfriend.
yeah.
She's a social media influencer, and Rebecca is the now owner that she received it through the divorce settlement with her husband of the team, and like just to see how their relationship, like over those episodes, it was really like you said, wholesome, but it was
Right back.
raunchy at the same time. Yeah, it was raunchy and wholesome at the same time. Now, the one thing I really loved the most about the show was just the character development of Nick, not Nick Muhammad, who plays Nathan, and Jeremy Swift, who's Higgins, who is the assistant to Rebecca, the owner. But I really liked how there was just such character depth. When you start in that first episode, you know the whole premise of the show is Rebecca owns the team, but she's going to run it into the ground because she hates her ex-husband. And you know, like, okay, I already know how. Where we know at some point he's going to win her over. Okay, great. But you like her inner conflict to like Ted Lasso wasn't as painful as you thought. It was just very organic. Like she would find herself laughing, she would find herself opening up. Okay, but then she's like, okay, but I gotta go back to this. But it wasn't forced. And then the resolution at the very end where she confronts him and says, look, like I love you, like you're a great person. I love you being here, and I'm sorry I fucked up. It was resolvable easily. It wasn't like Ted Lasso would fucking walk on the street corner and you have a musical montage with like fucking Gavin DeGraw for like 10 minutes or something stupid like that, right? Like we get with so many shows. And you know, they set up Jamie Tart for season 2, obviously. Like what's
Oh
gonna
yeah.
happen?
Oh
The
yeah.
one the one I'm interested in is Roy Kent for season 2. What's gonna happen now? Because like his arc was I thought they were gonna resolve it to where he's gonna be able to find himself, but they really are talking about physically he was done. So okay, so I'm kind of maybe a coach, but then it would be kind of weird to have him as an assistant coach on the team next
I
season.
think he's just
I
gonna
don't
be
know.
around as Keely's boyfriend.
That would be cool, you know, because I fucking love Juno Temple on this show. She was hilarious to me, just
Yeah.
hilarious, and just her and Rebecca's interactions just were like you said were rated R wholesome. They were just
Yeah.
so wholesome, but while they talked to dirty at the same time, it was like there's just so much about the story I liked. I liked how they handled Jason's not Jason Sudeikis, how they handled Ted's struggle with his marriage
Hmm.
entire show, and the real reason for him coming to accept the job in Richmond, as well as just like the soccer culture in England. Like you're
Yeah.
right, they filmed this on location. That was the best thing to do because if they tried to recapture that in the states, it wouldn't have been. They couldn't have captured it right. They just
Nope.
couldn't have.
Not at
Especially
all.
the exterior aesthetics. They just you can't capture England without being in England. That's just really it. Like you could try to find little patches in like Boston or wherever you can, but you know that that's not old school
Exactly.
little town England. It's not. It's just yeah. I really love the show. And then, of course some people are going to say it's like oh it's overrated or people are just playing it up too much.
Those people are fucking idiots.
Yeah, they are. I'm not gonna lie. It's a good show, like a really good. It's one of those like it's one of the better first seasons of a show I have to say in a while now that I've really like I would say wow this one really I didn't expect it to be this good. I was like okay I trust Warburg. He says it's good. You're gonna enjoy it, but I didn't realize how good I was gonna think it was gonna be as it kept going on and on and on. And I had a good old time and I'm actually glad that I was late to this because now in 2 months we get Loki next month,
Yep.
and then in July we get Ted Lasso again.
It's
So
gonna
I'm
be so
like,
fucking great.
okay, it's gonna be a great summer, man. Like I'm all about this summer
It's gonna be
of
great. Like,
just
did you watch the trailer?
No, I have not seen the new trailer yet. No, I
Okay,
have
you
not.
gotta watch it
Okay.
because then we'll discuss things. Because maybe next time we'll talk the trailer. It was so good. Oh, it's a great trailer.
Yeah, I haven't watched the trailer just because I had just wrapped it up and I was catching up on Bad Batch and
There's a
stuff, so I
saw
have
running, and man, it's not even picking that up. Fucking
not even
great.
I don't hear anything. I see you looking back and I'm like, "No, I don't hear anything, man.
Sorry,
There's no."
audience. Somebody just turned on a power saw literally outside my window. OBS isn't picking any of it up. It's awesome. Love this shit. Um, but yeah, like Ted Lasso for me, like my favorite scene of Ted Lasso, episode 8 in the bar. There's one bad guy in this show, like who's definitively he's an asshole, and you're meant to hate him. Everyone else you're supposed to like maybe start disliking or not know how to feel about, and then everybody's likable except one
Yeah,
dude, and that's
yeah,
Rupert, the
yeah,
ex-husband of Rebecca. But you understand he's a manipulative asshole dick,
yeah.
and like immediately, like when Ted Lasso sizes him up at the charity gala and tells Rebecca, well, maybe everyone else can't see what he is, but I know. And like
Yeah,
that was awesome. And then when he beats
yeah,
his ass in darts, like he just like hustles the shit out of him. It's like, oh, I forgot I'm left-handed, and just nails it. And that whole bit about judgmental versus being curious, and then nailing the last 3 shots to win at darts. One of the best scenes of TV I've watched in years. I rewatch it on YouTube at least once a week. It's fantastic. So
it makes
good.
you pop. You pop for it. You pop for
Yeah,
it, which is
you
you get
literally are
excited.
cheering when he hits that shot. You're like, yes, so good,
Yeah.
so good.
I think I also mentioned this. Of course, I could not overlook the culturally the British snark, but it's
Yeah,
endearing in
yeah,
this show. It is so endearing because like my wife is not a real big fan of a lot of British shows just because with the snark and just she doesn't get the humor, like that dry, snarky humor. It's not really like her wheelhouse when in terms of entertainment. For me, it's something I love. I love that. Like Ab Fab over you remember Absolutely Fabulous on Comedy Central in the early
kind
90s?
of.
Okay. That was as British snark as you can get in the 90s, right? So I
No, I
was like,
like
okay,
speaking of British stuff. I was a big Red Dwarf fan,
okay,
but
well there you go. The Red
yeah,
Dwarf's yeah. So I was very happy that this like they were gonna make sure this was as true to like that British humor as possible with a lot of these characters. But the great thing about that was that so many of them had depth. And I will
yeah,
continue to say that because I think we miss a lot of that in a lot of shows we get now because they rush these things so fast. Like you have your central core that pushes the story, and then you have your secondary characters that are along for the ride. That a lot of times their depth in storytelling is not there. Even the secondary characters, you get much depth in. Like
yeah,
Flo, which is Rebecca's childhood friend, she's only on for a couple of episodes, but like there's in those short episodes, you get so much depth in the backstory of her and her relationship with Rebecca, and like going forward with Ted, it's just like okay, it makes they're laying down a foundation of what could be a 3 or 4 really good seasons coming up. You
yeah.
know, I
Like
really
another one that comes to mind for me for that is Trent Krim, the Independent,
okay.
right? The
Yep.
reporter. Like
Yeah.
he's just a background character because he's a reporter, but he's the
Yeah.
face of the media that we see, and his relationship with the team. You know, like, and you find out Ted knows he has a kid, so he
Yeah.
brought cakes for his kid. Like just a little bit that you don't see Trent's reaction to it. You see other characters talking about it. Just
Yep.
lends so many layers to like yeah, like they're just people, and it's like you said earlier, you know where the show is going. They're
Yeah.
full on going. They got sent down. They got relegated.
Relegated.
They're gonna get
Relegated.
promoted, and then they're gonna
Yep.
win the whole fucking thing.
They're gonna
Like
win the whole fucking thing.
that's gonna
Yeah.
they're gonna do it. Which
Yeah.
again, very major league. Like
Yep.
super rich heiress trying to fuck over the team, but she's a good guy, right?
Yeah.
Like, and then and then he even says well, there's only one thing left to do, win the whole fucking thing. Like that's a direct quote from Major League. Like they very clearly took a lot of
Which is
inspiration from
awesome
that
because
story.
we get 3 references to sport to American sports cinema. We get the first reference to we talking about practice.
That
We
was
talking about
that
practice.
whole we talking about
Not
practice
a
thing.
game. We
Oh,
talking about practice. And you can see the other character, the other actors in the background
they
really
get
doing
it.
their best to hold a straight face, and they're having a hard time.
And the
Even the guy
characters
that's
get it. Like they
yeah,
know he's doing the practice rant.
yeah, they all
But
know it. but they're trying to hold it just like the actors aren't trying to break. They're not trying to break, especially the guy that plays Roy Kent. You could see like there's a shot of him where he's like, yes, yes, but you could tell like in the background there's a back shot where you see him kind of just smirking, like trying to hold it in. The other one is, of course, the Miracle reference, which they went meta on. Like, isn't that from a movie? He goes, Nate asks Coach Beard, isn't that from a movie, American movie? He goes, actually, it's both, yeah, movie and real life. And they walk out when he quotes the Miracle. And then at the end, like you said, Major League, I guess we're just gonna have to win the whole fucking thing. It's like, but it works. They do a good
Yeah,
job of
it's
these
just
callbacks.
endearing. Like
Yeah,
the whole show is endearing.
yeah,
It's again much like Mass Effect. Like you can't pick one thing. It's the whole package. It's just it works.
yep,
For whatever reason, it all does. And the guy behind this, I can't. I literally wrote his name down, but I didn't put it on the doc. He was one of the co-creators of Scrubs. Which again, similar thing. Like those first few runs of Scrubs, similar kind of just like all the characters are endearing. Even the fucking head administrator guy, who's supposed to be the antagonist to all of them and putting them down. Like you find
yeah.
out, oh, he's like a really good guy to his son, and he's like a nice guy. Like that whole stuff going on. Like very similar bones, if an entirely different type of show. Being a sports show and a drama with comedy, which I really dug. Because
Bill
that's the
Lawrence, by the way. Bill
yeah,
Lawrence.
Bill Lawrence. I knew it was a Bill. I couldn't think of the last name. But yeah, to go back to the practice rant, like that's Ted Lasso in a nutshell. It's a joke, memeing the practice rant, pulls it all the way around to being heartwarming,
Yeah,
like to being like he's like insulting a player, but doing it out of a place of I want you to be better, go be better,
yeah.
right? Like that's Ted Lasso, which is why the show fucking rules, and I cannot wait for season 2 because that player he was insulting is going to come back and help him in a very key moment. It's going to be
Yeah,
awesome. It's
exactly.
paint by numbers, but really fucking cool.
My favorite episode was the training room episode,
Oh, the curse one?
first one.
Yeah,
Fucking
so good.
hilarious. Just hilarious. Just like all of the things that they had. One guy like his Lamborghini keys. One he brought sand because that's where he banged his first supermodel. But just what's
Yeah.
funny about it is because not we get out of that episode and I think that's episode 6 if I remember, and then in episode 9, the last episode, no, 9 is the episode where Rebecca comes clean.
Yep.
And the one thing, like the drama aspect of this comedy is the emotional PTSD we suffer as people.
Yeah,
And
just from
Rebecca,
just through life.
yeah, like in Major League, she was just a bitch because she wanted to run the team into the ground
Yeah.
because she wanted to
But
sell it or whatever, right? With this one, she was like you find out she's spiteful of him because of their divorce because he was having affairs. But then you learn through the season that he was manipulative. He basically was psychologically abusive and emotionally abusive to her, and like all these things. Like you don't like Rupert at all, but like you have to give the actor credit because he just throws off the arrogance.
he's just British smarm. Like he
Yeah,
just
but he
oozes
just
it.
reeks of that arrogance. Like just he
Yeah.
does it so well that you could tell like the butting of heads with personalities of someone of a high moral value like a Ted Lasso. Like you could just see like and Sudeikis is, don't get me wrong, he's brilliant in this because the little, like you said, the nuances when he tells her at the charity auction, like he tells her, yeah, I read him and he's not a good guy.
Yeah.
But like just basically telling her like, you guys may think I'm a fool, but I'm not a fool. I can see what's in front of me, and I can see he's a piece of shit.
And like the
Um,
better
yeah.
manners when I'm holding the dart as he stares at him. Like
Yep.
just
Yep.
like that little hint of Ted Lasso's not entirely as nice as he lets on. Like sometimes he's got an edge, and you
Yep.
just get little tiny peeks at it.
Yep.
And it makes everything all the better. Like when he yells at Nate that one episode, but then apologizes. And that
Yeah,
whole bit with apologize to me in a dream, we'll be fine. Like that kind of thing. Like so good. And like another one of those subplots, Nate when he gets promoted, like that whole, and then immediately he's peppering in jokes like, you know why this whistle is sad? Because it's never been blown. Oh, is that why Colin's sad? Like shit like that. Like
I like it before
peppers
the
in.
pregame, where he roasts all the players before the pregame.
Another one of
God.
those. I liked a video that has the whole bit and doesn't
Yeah.
cut off before he rips up the bench, just so I can rewatch it. It's fucking awesome. Funny
It's such a
with
good show.
great like heart when he's talking about Roy's anger. Like so good. I don't want to belabor the episode and go super long. We're at about an hour 8 right now, and we've kind of started to talk in circles a little about Ted Lasso,
A
but it's a good
little
enough
bit,
show
yeah.
to deserve it because it's
Yeah,
fucking great. So you
yeah,
should
I
all go
agree.
watch that. Next episode will be 2 weeks from today. That is going to be what? That's the first weekend in June, right? Yeah, June 4th. So
Go for it.
before then, I'll have had a colonoscopy, which is super fun. Doing that on the 1st. Got the charity stream this Sunday. We got a couple more episodes of Bad Batch to talk about next time. I'll be talking about A Quiet Place 2, which I saw in theaters with my buddy Joey. Maybe even have him on the episode
Maybe.
for the first time with this new podcast we've been doing. Or not new, it's almost a year old now. And go from there. Fusion, you got anything coming up in the next 2 weeks?
No, man. Gonna catch up on things. Gonna help play a little Apex during your charity stream, guys. If you can, please, if you're listening, go donate. Cure for Crohn's, and appreciate everybody for that. And that's really it, man. Just gonna catch up on a few things. I think I am gonna jump on either the Expanse or 12 Monkeys in the next couple weeks, man. I
I don't
got
know
to.
which one to tell you to start. Oh my god,
I
they're
know.
both so good. I
I
don't
know.
know what
I
to
watched
pick.
my first episode into the Expanse and I stopped, but maybe I should just dip into that one and get
The
it over with.
Expanse and 12 Monkeys both take time. Okay, breaking the outro. They're new sci-fi IPs, much like Mass Effect. You have to set the scene. Like, you have to set the stage. It's not
Okay.
based on anything because you cannot assume, like in the Expanse, it's based on books, which was also the books were based on their old RPG game. Like, they were playing an RPG sci-fi game and then they turned it into a story and then made the show. And it's awesome. 12 Monkeys is similar in that it was based on the 12 Monkeys story, which was the Bruce Willis movie, which is based on a 1960s sci-fi, like all time. If aliens
Yep.
discover humanity, they need to read that kind of story of like how we perceive the world. Like it's a really cool sci-fi, like a little novella that was based on like short story, and then got turned into a great movie with Bruce Willis and Brad Pitt in the 90s. This is not based on that. It's not a continuation. It's a reimagining of that source material from the 60s sci-fi story, and tells one of the greatest time travel stories I've ever or watched. It buttons up every single loop of the time story in a way that
Okay.
most other shows I've ever watched about time travel fail to do. But it does take 4 or 5 episodes to set all the pieces on the table. By episode 5, you can tell, oh, they know where they're going. And by episode 5, they had said, we knew every single player, we knew every single beat. It was all plotted out. We knew exactly we wanted 4 seasons. Sci-fi gave us 4 seasons, and we told our story. Like, very few shows are planned that way.
For 4 seasons is I'll probably let's just say I'm gonna watch 12 Monkeys. It sounds like a much quicker watch.
It is short. It is as short as The Expanse. They were both The Expanse and 12 Monkeys were in sci-fi's like last gasp of, oh, we can still tell dope shit on our network.
Yeah.
Like, because Expanse started on sci-fi, and you can kind of tell when it changes to an Amazon show.
Yeah.
Budgets get a lot bigger, basically. You can kind of tell. And both of them, though, in their early guts of it, were very much take the time to set all the pieces up and set that world up, because it's very different. One's post-apocalypse, one's far future. And then just go. And so I would say give each 4 episodes.
Okay.
If you're not hooked, cool. But there's a episode 4 of 12 Monkeys, if you're going to go there. It's called Atari. It's where they first start really playing within loops upon loops of multiple time travels within the same episode. And like,
Okay.
and then it immediately branches into an alternate reality storyline. Really fucking dope. So
Okay.
and I just finished a rewatch of it last week, which is why I'm so hyped.
Okay.
I've just binged it all in like 3 weeks.
I'm gonna go ahead and dump in on 12 Monkeys then.
Yeah, you let me know what you think about it, and I'll
Yeah.
let you know why you're wrong if you don't like it.
Okay, that's
All
fair.
right, that's the plan for 2 weeks from now, people.
2 weeks.
All right. Thanks everyone for hanging. I've been at MrWartburg. That's at It's Mr. Fusion. You can follow us both on Twitter, and where we post and banter about things throughout the period of time between these podcasts, because we love talking about nerdy shit, and we love talking about it on recordings too, so you can listen. Be sure to either subscribe on any feeds you're maybe listening on, whether it's on YouTube or an actual audio feed, and leave a review or a like and comment if you are again on the video side. And we'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye.
Later.